Well, welcome everyone. This is the Hill Country Energy Sub-Regional Planning Commission, our board meeting. It is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025, shortly after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we're going to start our meeting with a prayer led by Commissioner Jeff Holt.
All right, thank you. You all stand and bow your heads. Dear Lord, we want to thank you for the opportunity to gather today at our Hill Country Energy SRPC meeting. We want to pray that our deliberations go well, they're civil, but we also thank those that have traveled so long to be here today. We know it's not easy to come to our court and talk about some challenging subjects, but we believe we need answers. We have concerns that with your guidance, we can all come together for a safer Kerr County, Gillespie County, and Kendall County. And it's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And now we'll have a quick pledge of allegiance, and both flags are in the front. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the other one, honor the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Honor all. Oh, okay. I thought I heard an echo where they were on. All right. Well, Jennifer is attending to that. The first order of business is approval of the October 21st meeting minutes. I hope everyone has had an opportunity to review the minutes. Any corrections? Motion to approve then?
Second.
Motion and a second. Chad. Judge. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay. The next item is to formalize Gillespie County joining our Hill Country Energy Sub-Regional Planning Commission. It's taken a little time and effort to sort through all the agreements and the necessary approvals, but we have them all in place. And I guess I'll go ahead and make a motion to welcome Gillespie County's representatives to the Hill Country Energy Sub-Regional Planning Commission Board. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous. So with that, we have Gillespie County Judge Daniel Jones and Keith Kramer. Please join us at the front table. You're now official.
So the lady in the front wants to know if we can use the microphone.
Who wants to know?
The lady in the front, she can't hear us, so if we
Oh,
pass the mic
okay.
back and forth.
Well,
They are what they are.
we'll see if that helps.
Yes, sir, Judge.
Yeah, wherever you'd like.
Look at the ones on the end.
You're the only judge amongst us, so don't be too critical. All right. With that, we'll go through a local best facility update. Commissioner Holt, you want to start us off? Anything new that you're aware of?
Yes, thank you. What we have seen, just for those that are aware, the ERCOT website is local for all recent updates, there are additions or subtractions. I'll do a rough framework where we're at with that. Larger protections zoned into our areas of concern. Again, energy is still the number one industry in Texas, with over $178 billion for investment plan we call out for the future, and battery energy storage systems alone. That's being driven by the ERCOT requirements that are put out, which equals about 1,000 BESSs. These are all standalone. I'm not talking about the ones tied to solar or wind. These are all standalone BESSs currently being advertised. So it's 1,000 BESSs. Next question is, okay, so what's coming here? I'll get there. The industry alone generates currently about $47 billion in revenue. Next to that is oil and gas. So oil and gas is no longer king in Texas. It's interesting. You always thought it would be. But energy provides way more revenue. and has so much more potential for growth. We see it not only in the battery energy storage system, which is why we all gathered, and we have concerns about that. But it's also in the form of transmission passing lines. Currently, our transmission passing lines are 348 kV that come and terminate around Comfort, which is in that Kendall substation is in Kendall County, right past Highway 87 and I-10. That's a big focus area for two of the larger energy storage systems coming our way. And they are on approval list for ERCOT. And they are an LCRA substation, and they can handle that amount of wattage. They have two different 345 kV lines. Those are large lines. Those lines over time are going to double in size. And our state representative West will definitely track that, as well as anyone in this room about the growth of power lines coming from west to east, as the energy demand is still there, and it's frankly available out west in the form of very intermittent solar demand. So $47 billion of investment. That's not including what it could be projected with $178 billion of investment in energy storage over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. So that's a large behemoth that is greater than anything else in Texas as far as revenue producing. Now, to our area, we've been tracking pretty well for some time, possible in Kerr, possible Besses and Kendall, and then possible in Gillespie alone. There is one plan, and I would say tangentially under construction somewhat in Harper. And we're aware of the folks that are doing that. We've all met together up in Harper and heard the pitch from that company bringing a 100 megawatt, 120 megawatt facility there in Harper. Second one closest, which is the only one currently planned, is the one in Mount Home, off 469 and I-10. And that is right down the line from Harper, by the way. Their substation and connects up with the northern loop that runs in through Kerrville and then terminates out in Comfort. The two that are in Comfort that are on the list are being planned there. One is at 250, one is at 100. That's 350. It could be the largest that we're looking at in Texas, which has our concern about its location, specifically on a one-end road, Flat Rock Creek, right next to the Guadalupe River, right next to many of our folks that are here, the properties are on the one lane. And then it's a mile from school, a mile from the river, a mile from town, in prevailing winds. Has some concerns about the lack of regulations, the lack of safety, and everything that we're asking for and hoping for all of these facilities. It's just not there, which has our concerns. So to kind of tee things up, there's been no new additions off the ERCOT GIS list, but since it's a larger audience, I want to take time to frame it up. Fair enough?
Yeah, fair enough. I just wanted to add one update, and that is that we just received a report on the east-west energy best. That's the one on I-10 and Harper Road, and not Harper. 479. Thank you. And anyway, they are going to be in our commissioners court meeting on the 24th. They are going to be looking for some approvals from the authority having jurisdiction, which happens to be our commissioners court. And I believe they're asking for some exceptions to the regulations. And of course, well, we'll see how that goes. And in the meantime, they have submitted a report done by a licensed, I don't know if they're engineers or whatever, FFE. But anyway, we'll be going through that, and we're lucky enough to have a few individuals that have volunteered to go through that in great detail and tell us what we need to ask and what might be wrong with the study that was done that Black Mountain or East-West Energy have paid for. So that's just that update. And again, that'll be in the Commissioners Court meeting here in Kerr County on the 24th. If anybody's interested and wanting to attend, and you'll be able to have public input. Any other updates?
I just wanted to let everyone know that there was a town hall 3 weeks ago, I believe, in Comfort, where the company East Point, who is trying to develop or build a BESS in Comfort on Flat Rock Creek Road, approached one of the individuals who lives on that road and said that they would be building within 2 weeks. That hasn't happened. They haven't started, but we're fully aware of East Point and their intentions. So they're all at the door. Their funding runs out, I believe, next summer. So I know that they're all ready to build. So we are keeping a watchful eye on what's going on and using what we have in Kendall County, which is different than Gillespie and Kerr as far as the ability to regulate and have them go through our development office. So.
Okay. Anything else?
In Comfort, we have a QT gas station right on Bike 10, and they have some land for sale right behind their gas station that wraps around the substation. And we were able to negotiate with QT for restrictions of the use that prohibit battery storage, solar, or any type of adult stores on that property. So that's a good thing. I did hear one of our close friends that lives off of a road called Peanut Road, off the Ware and Welfare Road between Bernie and Comfort. There's a substation, and there's been people asking about purchasing property around that substation. So keep an eye out. These substations are where they set up, and so anywhere a substation is already located, is by one of the big transmission lines, is a very suitable place where they try to buy property and set up shop.
Okay. There was one good piece of news that I understand that there was a solar project down in Bandera County, and it's been reported that the developer's going belly up. So
Wow.
we'll see. Of course, they may sell it to somebody else who comes right back in and finishes it off. That seems to be the nature of a lot of these. But Jones, you want to give us an update on the Gillespie project?
We don't want any feedback here. So there's two projects, two primary projects that are concerned in Gillespie County. One is the project Harper that was discussed or mentioned earlier. The second project north of Fredericksburg, in between Fredericksburg and Willow City on Highway 16, commonly referred to as Marshall Springs. It's a solar and battery energy storage project. The Gillespie County has adopted the Commissioners Court adopted a resolution for the Harper project. We've now adopted a second resolution for the Marshall Springs project. Notifying the developers will be intended to enforce the NRPA 855 and other ancillary codes as well as our floodplain ordinance for that project. There was a large town hall, or not organized by the county, but by citizens related to the Marshall Springs project. I think it was about 10 days ago. Standing room only, large crowd, good exchange of information, getting residents up to speed on what's going on with that project. I have personally, in my capacity as county judge, sent correspondence to the governor and to the Texas Attorney General asking for a meeting. Either with them or someone appropriate, some appropriate staff member in our office to discuss what options we have, at least in their opinion, to deal with these from a regulatory standpoint and a public safety standpoint. I have not gotten a response to either of those requests yet. On November 14th, Friday, the state fire marshal and two fire engineers came to Fredericksburg and met myself, our county fire marshal, city fire marshal, county engineer, our outside counsel present, our county attorney present. And I want to thank them for coming by an hour and a half discussion. Really clarify how they work with the local entities, how they interpret the NFPA in different circumstances, But they indicated they were open to meeting with others as well. So if any other entities are interested, I would suggest reaching out to them. They would likely come and have a talk to us as well. So I think that's all I've got as far as updates from Gillespie County. I'm sorry. There's been some discussion about potential projects in the city of Fredericksburg. I know there was one planned on Live Oak, West Live Oak in the city. I have confirmed with the city manager that project is dead currently due to the land use and zoning regulations that the city has. They would not, the city council was not interested in changing or amending the land use and zoning regulations to accommodate that project. So, unfortunately, for cities and municipalities, they have more regulatory oversight than other parts of the county. But I know some people have concerns about that. So that's the latest information I have on that as well. Thank you.
You have an update? Or?
Yeah, I have something I want to say. If you wanted to.
Well, I just wanted to report, because we discussed this at the last meeting, that I should make a request to ERCOT for some information. I did that using their online portal, and I asked for the security screening study and interconnection agreement on Mountain, just on that, see how it goes. And they did provide the control number for the interconnection agreement, so that it was possible with that to actually find it at PUCT. But they declined on the security screening study, and they gave the justification for that as being confidentiality, because they cited resource-specific costs, design and engineering data studies, and research and simulations that identify cyber and physical security vulnerabilities of ERCOT system infrastructure. That's why they did not provide those and will not provide those. So the reason that we have seen nothing about cyber and security vulnerabilities and the interconnection agreements is because that information is contained in the security screening studies, which are classified, so to speak. So we need to address that fact and what other methods there might be to at least gain some assurance that those studies have been carried out. That's something we should look at in the future. But anyway, since that did work on getting that, some of the information, which was not confidential, I filed a subsequent request, and I'll report on that next time.
Good, thank you.
So I did want to ask, has Upper Turtle Creek now just fallen off the radar screen, or what?
It's still
It's still there?
potentially moving forward, yes.
Well, does anybody know the name of the company, or whether it's ever been on the GIS report?
No, it's never been.
It's never been. And do we know the name of the developer?
I was trying to get that here today, unsuccessful. But
Wow.
it's somewhere out there. We'll find it.
Okay.
All right. Anything? Then we'll move on to agenda number 4, which is a cybersecurity discussion. And Linda, you covered a little bit of that, and gave me some new information because I was not aware that they were doing a security screening. And I'm glad to hear that they are. I'm a little concerned that it's, we wouldn't have any access to it, but just for all of the audience's information and understanding, battery energy storage systems represent some very serious cybersecurity risks. They're unmanned, they're controlled remotely, and many of them have cattle batteries. That's a contemporary Amperex technology company, which is the world's largest battery maker and dominant supplier of cells for USS. And they're affiliated with China. And of course, then a lot of these facilities have circuit boards and control equipment made in China. And a good example where Chinese-made instruments have been problematic is the July 23 San Antonio grid infrastructure that was taken over for 4 hours by Volt Typhoon. as a result of the Chinese-made cameras that were connected. So we do have the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act of 2021, which is now Chapter 117 of the Texas Business and Commerce Code, which aims to protect Texas critical infrastructure, in particular the electric grid, amongst other. And it prohibits contracts with or access by companies or government entities from China, Iran, North Korea, and Russia. And the code was recently amended to include components made in China. Then we have the Governor's Executive Order GA 48 from November 24, GA 49 subsequently, which specifically requires all state agencies to require any company that submits a bid or proposal with respect to a contract for goods or services to the agency to certify that the company and any of its holding companies or subsidiaries is not listed in Section 889. Unfortunately, there are about 300 attestations from the state agencies that are missing. And it raises some serious concerns. We have the Department of Energy's Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security and Emergency Response, and they found that over 90% of grid-scaled battery energy storage systems deployed in the U.S. contain critical components manufactured in China, including battery management systems, power conversion systems, and supervisory interfaces. So it obviously raises serious concerns, and it begs the question, what exactly are Public Utilities Commission and ERCOT doing to enforce the Texas Business Commerce Code and GA 49 to ensure that our grid is protected from cybersecurity threats? We have raised our own sub-regional planning commission's concerns about cybersecurity and would like to have a seat at that table. So in the meantime, I think on the October 31st, I put in a call to Chief Nim Kidd with TEDM. And for anybody who doesn't know Chief Nim Kidd here in Kerr County, he was leading the charge from the state of Texas in response to the July 4th flood. And he did an incredible job. So I met him earlier. I gave him a call. Unfortunately, he didn't answer the phone, but I left a long and detailed message. And the next week, that was a Friday, and I think on Monday or Tuesday, Assistant Agency Director Blair Walsh returned my call, and we had a lengthy discussion. And a lot of my concerns were new to her. But again, this House Bill 150 looks like it's going to put the responsibility for cybersecurity on TEDM. And so she's and Chief and Kidd are going to be up to their ears in it. And she was well, very interested. A lot of it was new to her, but she committed to setting up a joint meeting between TEDM, Public Utilities Commission, ERCOT, LCRA, and our own 391 Sub-Regional Planning Commission to discuss our concerns and see what, if anything, is being done to address those concerns. So that's my update. Okay. Any questions?
Can I speak for a minute on that?
Absolutely.
So I have been going to a lot of these meetings. I have 16 counties in the district, and Menard County was the last one I went to. They're trying to put it in my county too. And on the cybersecurity, every time I bring it up, I ask them where the component's made at. It's always China, even with the truck. There's been only one company so far that has shown any initiative to try to divert away from the China concept. And talking to a friend of mine who is in intelligence and contracting. He has talked about how terrible it is that we have given them the wide open door to access to our critical infrastructure. They call, when they talk about our power lines and everything, are several things, such as water, gas, electricity. They call those life support, and the fact that we give them basically direct access to them, which is not good. And so hopefully this will be enforced too. But just in an argument, I asked them, hey, where do these come from? The answer to me is China. Even when they try to divert, which is the one company that we talked to utilize some other alternative, was it Sweden or Switzerland or something like that? There's still acquiring those components from China and then assembling them over there. So it is a massive problem. There's two main problems that have come up. We've noticed a lot of the best companies have gotten they understand that we're frustrated because they're putting them next to houses, schools, businesses, churches, everything else. But the one thing that they cannot address so far is the chemicals in the battery, the benefit of water system, and the cybersecurity. So as of right now, none of those companies have offered any solutions to avoid opening the door to China to have a commerce system still on a life support.
All right. Thank you. Anyway, thank you, Representative Bell.
Yeah, I just, again, wanted to report something from my last meeting because I did decide that I was gonna work on this question to the General's Office about cybersecurity. And I did revise that question, but in view of this meeting, obviously that is moot and we don't need to pursue that because this is even better. And hopefully we'll get all the questions answered. If we don't, then we can, consider. I think it's not necessary to have standing for a question like that. I just wanted to report back to you because it's not a question of opinion. It's only a question for information. So, anybody can do it. But there's one thing I wanted to bring up. It's great that we're getting this meeting, but there are issues that we need to address with LCRA and ERCOT that don't relate to cybersecurity and infrastructure, critical infrastructure protection. And so I wonder if I could just go ahead and bring that up right now, because there's no other place on the agenda to talk about it, and it's kind of sensitive.
You can keep it brief.
Okay, okay, so what I would like to do is, both ERCOT and LCRA have open board meetings. LCRA has its transition, both open board meetings, and I think that we should, in fact, I want to make a motion that we send a delegation like we did to PUCT to make public comment. Both of them have public comment opportunities at the beginning of their meetings. They meet in Austin most of the time, and the next meetings for ERCOT is one is December 8th and one is December 9th. And I think that worked out really well. For PUCT, we've got their representative here, and so I'd like to move that we do the same thing for LCRA and ERCOT and send a delegation.
Does LCRA's board meet? You mentioned that.
Let me see, one is, let's see. The next meeting for LCRA is December 9th, and ERCOT's next, and that will be in the afternoon. The next one for ERCOT is December 8th at 10 o'clock in the morning. So we could send one delegation maybe tonight, go to the next day, or we can send two delegations, but I think it's time that, we go to the mountain for LCRA.
Well, I'll second your motion.
Well, great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, that looks unanimous. So the only question is who's going to go?
Okay, we can do that now.
And I'm happy to go, at least one of them. I'm not sure about the overnight thing, but we'll
Is that
see.
traditionally an afternoon or a morning meeting?
One for, let's see. ERCOT is at 10 a.m. and that means, and LCRA is likely in the afternoon. So of the next day.
Kendall County would have to go on the 8th.
Okay. Well, that brings us, I think we can conclude item number 4. And that brings us to agenda item number 5, which is a discussion about battery energy storage fire safety. And I'm going to ask Van Zandt Fire Marshal Kevin Palmer to come up and join us at the table and tell us what you can about regulations and what Van Zandt County is doing. 'Cause I know you've had issues with a best facility, at least.
Yes, sir. So I'd like to start out on, I'd like to start out on common grounds and common understanding. So, like you said, I'm the Van Zandt County Fire Marshal. And so I only speak as a fire marshal and as a representative of a county government. So you have to understand that in Texas Government Code, Texas Government Code clearly delineates between the county and the city. And they clearly delineate between what a city can do and what a county can do.
Well, just for example, the city of Kerrville, they can adopt codes and they can zone. They can say, okay, this part of our town is residential. This part of our town is business only, they can do that kind of stuff. The Texas Government Code does not give that authority to the county. So if someone has a legal right to be there, whether they own the property or they are leasing it, generally, as long as they're not like an airport or a nuclear facility, they can build. So, when I first got to Van Zandt County, a lot of the very first questions that I would get was, can you stop them? If you want the short answer, the answer is no. I don't have that authority. The Commissioner's Court doesn't have that authority. I as the fire marshal, what I do with all businesses, because what a county fire marshal has jurisdiction over is all commercial properties, businesses, and poor family dwellings. So that's why I can't come inspect your single family residence when it's built. I don't have the authority to. I would never do that because I don't have the authority. So because these are commercial businesses and it is around the general public, what I do to all businesses, regardless of whether or not I agree with them or not, is I go with the relevant fire codes. And so the relevant fire codes that I will talk about in this city is, so also in the Texas Government Code, if you want to go look them up, there are the two main government codes that I reference, Local Government Code, Chapter 352. And that is for fire protection in the county. That's what actually, the first part of it is all about firefighting stuff and apparatus. You kind of got to get through that, but eventually it gets where it gives the Commissioner's Court the authority to say they may appoint a fire marshal, which means they don't have to. There's plenty of counties that don't have a fire marshal, but if they do, here's what a fire marshal can do. So that's 352. You also have Chapter 233 that has some other rules about it, and then in those two books, it delineates between the size of the county. So if your county has 150,000 residents, you can adopt any fire code that you want, which includes the International Fire Code, National Fire Protection Association Code, and cities and counties will do that. They'll adopt different versions. Because there's different years. But counties are sized to include Kerr County, you don't have the requirement, so it says we cannot adopt a fire code. But the big misconception is that, okay, it says you can't adopt a code, so a lot of people interpret that as to, you have no fire codes in the county, which is not true. All that means is you have to go off, and it specifically states, any nationally recognized code or what the state fire marshal's office has adopted. And currently, like I mentioned, the NFPA 1 and 101, what the state fire marshal's office is currently adopted is the 2021 version. And the NFPA 855, which deals solely with battery energy storage systems, 2020 edition. Interesting fact about the 855 is that all the other fire codes, they've been around for a long time, decades. In fact, so they're the whole benefit group. 855 is a newborn baby because the very first edition of NFPA 855 didn't come out until 2021. Technology changed so quickly, and these NFPA codes usually on a 3 to 6 year cycle of replacement. They usually come out every 4 or 5 years because there's not a lot of changes that have been made. NFPA 55 was a new edition that came out in 2023, the earliest a new edition to come out because technology has grown so much. So that's what I look at. The foundation that I stand on is the U.S. Constitution, the Texas Constitution, the Texas Government Code, Administrative Code, Health and Safety Code. That's the foundation that I stand on because that's what gives me my authority. So what happened in Van Zandt County is
they got a package similar to what they sent you. And my only response to that is, okay. Number one, it doesn't meet any of the requirements of NFPA 1, 101, or 855. Nowhere did it say you gotta send me this glossy printed packet that says you did great or amazing work. Now you've got to show me all this stuff. You told me that it was all good. Now show me the actual reports. And then just kind of ancillary to that is, people say, well, we got this report and they said it was good. Well, what did you think they were going to say? That it was a hazard that's going to kill a bunch of people?
Yeah.
So of course it says that they all passed. The letter that we got said that everything passed. And every report, when they finally sent it to me, every single one of them failed. Every single one. So, the main things that I'll talk about, because there's a lot, I'm gonna start very simplistic, and I'm gonna start with the basics because you need to stick to the basics. Because what I've seen is they will try to distract you with squirrels and throwing balls and get you running in all sorts of directions and get you off those basics because the law is the law. So the first thing you need to understand is that once they submit an application, you have 30 days to action that item. If you don't action that item in 30 days, it by default becomes approved. So you have to action that item in 30 days. You have 30 days to approve or by default it will be approved. So you gotta make sure that when they send you a document, that you action it in some way. That's step number one. So some of the basic things that they're gonna that you need to look for that they have to submit or that they have to do is before connectivity. And that's the part is that, you know, as a fire marshal, there was a dance hall out in the rural part of Kirk County. And somebody called me and said, hey, they got a bunch of open flames. They blocked all the exit doors. This place is a fire hazard. It's Saturday night. Like, someone's gonna die. And I show up there Saturday evening for dance hall opens, and sure enough, open flames, exit doors are blocked. Like, I have to believe it's been done to chain that place up, give them a temporary restraining order, and close them down tonight because the threat was imminent. There were people coming there tonight. People could have died right then. With that major storage, to my knowledge, my county, I know for a fact, First County get a temporary restraining order against one of these companies. And I haven't found anywhere in the US that's ever been done. But that was not our goal. My goal is compliance. My goal is safety. If you choose the hard route, I will go the hard route with you. But anyway, that's different. What is imminent threat? Imminent threat to us, as we decided as a county, was the battery themselves. So when we got the temporary restraining order, it wasn't to halt all construction. It was to give a temporary restraining order against the batteries coming into Van Zandt County. And it took a lot of courage for the commissioner's court, it took a lot of courage for the district judge, because most judges don't like to set precedents. Right? If they get a drug case, they sat over 100 drug cases. They know what to do. They've never sat in front of a battery storage system, and they don't really know the fire code. So it took a lot of courage for him to sign that as well, the district court judge. So anyway, some of the things to look out for, they're going to be important is one, local first responders need to be trained on what to do about their battery energy storage system fire. There's several trainings that need to take place. There needs to be one where construction never begins. There needs to be one when the construction is about 50% complete. And there needs to be at least a third training right before they go 100% online. And that needs to involve I don't know how y'all are broken up, but you should have an emergency manager who's with the judge. And then an emergency management coordinator, a fire marshal, all the fire departments would respond, and you actually get together and you conduct that training. That's one part. Another part is they have to submit an emergency response plan. They also have to submit what's called a hazard mitigation analysis. So I denied both of those because they were not site specific. One of them, they had just cut and pasted from, basically it didn't matter if it was built in New York City or in California or Van County. Here's our emergency response plan. And I denied it because it wasn't site specific. In fact, it was part of the hazard mitigation. No, the emergency response plan actually said New York City and Pennsylvania. So I rejected them because, again, it has to be site specific. And I went into a house, you could see. I said, I need you to pretend that you and the family that you love live in that house. And then put together an emergency response plan and hazard mitigation analysis and bring that to me. When that happens, we'll have a place to go forward. When you look at the emergency response plan and hazard mitigation analysis, you also need to look at what's called a UL 9540 certification. That's very important. It's going to come in stages. So the first thing is they test the battery itself, a single cell battery. That battery will fail. It'll fail for at least two reasons. It'll fail for thermal runaway and for explosive vapors. It'll fail those two things. And that's because the batteries go inside of a module. There can be anywhere from 10 to 25 batteries inside of a module. Just depends on their design. But that module is going to fail. And it's going to fail for at least explosive gases. That's actually okay because then they take all of those modules and they stick them into a container that looks like a rail car, like a shipping container Connex, but it's got all these fire ratings. They put all of those modules in there and then they test it. We have not received a passing UL 9540 container certification yet. So they're not allowed to bring batteries in until that happens. So there's going to be 3 reports that you get. Eventually, those will be UL 9540 alphas. That's the test itself, which when if they pass all those, we'll give them the UL 9540 certification. That's the basics on that. Kind of put a pin in that, so I'm going to come back to it because it does get later. But you got to have those 3 tests, and you got to pass, and you got to go. Some other stuff that they have is water supply. Water supply is one of the things that you have to look at and look at what the definition of a remote facility. If I say something is remote, kind of all picture like, there's a well house that's remote, which means there's nothing around it. Well, the definition of remote per NFPA 85 is 100 feet from any building or property line that can be built on. I can definitely still throw a rock 100 feet. It's not remote, like what we think remote. But again, all I can go off is 855. 855 says remote. That matters because if it was not remote, there's no conditions against this. They have to have a permanent water supply, which means if they didn't have hydrants running out there, they would have to run the hydrants. But if they're 100 feet from something, which is not hard to do, then they can do a water calculation off of another NFPA standard. So that was the situation we were in. And their first, the calculation came out to 30,000 gallons, but they were going to store it. I can't dispute that. That's a simple calculation out of another NFPA standard. But they were going to store it in frac tanks, which frac tanks come generally from the oil field, separates water from heavy metals. But anyway, these frac tanks, what they don't have is they don't have connections for fire department apparatus. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 million gallons out there, if fire trucks can't get to it, it's irrelevant. So I denied that. Eventually, there are NFPA certified compliant water tanks. They eventually, that's the only thing that I've approved so far was the design for a single water tank. But this round will start getting later. So, and where your fire, because Kirk County does not have a fire marshal, so all you can really do is contract with either a municipality that has one, or hire a third-party contractor or something like that. And then the commissioner's court, through that contract, fire authority handles the actual permitting and stuff like that. So, because it comes in, like, so my background, I'm a fully certified fire marshal now, but fire marshals usually they come from fire side, police side. I was a Houston fireman for over 20 years, so everything I do when I go and do an inspection, I'm looking at it through a fireman's eyes. And so on that hazard mitigation analysis, like one tank in one area is not sufficient for me. Because we're all volunteer departments, and if the prevailing winds are blacking that water supply out, and I don't have water supply. So I go alternate water supplies, I look at alternate entrances.
it gets very complex that you actually need like a fire professional to go through that hazard mitigation analysis. And one, make sure that it's site specific, and two, that it's realistic for your responding fire departments. Because not all fire departments are equal. Now I work for Houston Fire Department, and I work for a very rural fire department called Bladewater. I almost felt like I had to go back to the academy again when I went to Bladewater, because it was just two different types of firefighting. Different equipment, different people, different way to fight fire, and it's okay. But you gotta be realistic with what you have. So that's why I say, when I say site specific is also bringing your first responders into the fold and saying, hey, what can y'all do in this situation? And we all know that, all right, so we gotta look at, fire potential for the containers, but we also have them usually in big open fields, and during fire season, what do big open fields do? They burn, right? So how are we gonna fight wildland fires in there? So you gotta bring three people that actually fight the fire into the decision-making process, which is what I highly suggest. Because if you don't, you're leaving your first responders out, basically. Because they're the ones that have to go through the gate, nobody else will, right? So you bring them into the fold at some point. So there's a lot more stuff that they have to submit, but it's an entire packet. I started out like I do with all businesses, I try to have conversations with them to get in compliance. Then I will have a face-to-face meeting where I by tone a little more stern. And then if you don't get it by then, I've given you all these options and you said no to all of them. Now I have to take it to the law enforcement aspect, which is what we did as a county. So I asked the county commissioners court to come together and the district attorney to come together and have a meeting, because like when I go arrest somebody or close a business down, like I'm assuming some responsibility in that. But I know that I'm doing the right thing. They can sue me all they want. I have insurance through a lot of different associations. You're gonna lose, who cares? But in this particular situation, I was not the only one that was gonna assume all the liability and the risk, because these are multi-million, sometimes multi-billion-dollar companies with lots of money in their pocket. They could potentially bleed the county dry. So that's why I wanted to make sure we took it to the people and said, is this what we really want to do? Because it's about to get Western. And they say, yeah, it's a hill worth dying on. So that's what the district attorney. So my fire marshal order, which a lot of people don't know, that disregarding the fire marshal's order is a Class B misdemeanor, which is an arrestable offense. So my fire marshal order and the 400-something page temporary restraining order that our district attorney wrote is all on our county website. You just go to handcounty.org. All of that stuff is on there for you to see. So I'll kind of conclude my part. I'll answer any questions that you have, but I'll conclude with this. The issue that I have not had in Van Zandt County, that other counties have called me, and if it's a commissioner, I always refer them to my precinct 2 commissioner. He's kind of been designated as the best commissioner. I always refer a judge to our judge. I'll always refer a district attorney to my district attorney. Because we all have a part to play in this. And the issue that I have not had that some counties do is that, well, 3 commissioners want it, 2 commissioners don't, the DA doesn't care. I've never had to fight that battle. From the very beginning, since that meeting, we've all had the same common message, which is meet the standard or don't. You can't build it here. It's very simple. Meet the standard. Meet the minimum requirements. Because I'll go back to what I began with. If you legislation, state legislation has to change in order for a county to decide where these things can be built. Because again, we have no zoning authority, right? That's what I started off with. So they have a legal right to do what they're doing. So if you just fight, if your fight is I just don't like you, you're going to lose. Because you have no legal standing. But if you hold them accountable to what they're supposed to be doing, what I have found is that they're having a very difficult time doing that. So a lot of questions I get is, so why are they being built in other counties? Because other counties can do what they want. So other counties received that free packet and said, build away, give us your tax revenue. Every county that has enforced the standard, that facility has not been able to go into basically go online. So
Again, lots of reasons, I could talk for hours about this. This has been the last 10 months of my life to include all the other list of fire marshal things that I have to do. But I think it's important that, the reason I came here was, to me, y'all are still in the grieving process from the horrible tragedy. So if I can help out in any way, y'all still need to be focused on that. In my opinion, you still need to be focused on that. So if I can fight this battle for you, I will.
First question, maybe. You know, I really appreciate your comments. I took a lot of notes down, and I'm just really grateful you came and spoke with us today, on the panel. The glaring thought in my head right now, are we doing the wrong thing by not having a fire marshal in our county? Who's gonna hold them accountable? Who's gonna enforce that standard? Can we really rely on the state fire marshal to come do that and do the due diligence that you've done for your county and to be able to network? I have a real concern that this problem is large enough, not only in our county, but perhaps our other partners now, that we need to consider this, and it's not a popular thing.
Kendall and Gillespie have fire marshals,
Okay, so for our county,
we're the holdout.
I'll give you, that's a two-part question. So the first part, I'll actually address the state fire marshals part of it. Which a lot of people think, and it's, it's not, like, it almost makes sense that there is a chain of command process that, like, I as a county fire marshal report to the state. There's no connection. None whatsoever. I do not report whatsoever to the state fire marshal's office. The state fire marshal's office is a part of the Texas Department of Insurance. So they are a resource. If I need an arson sniffing dog, I will call them. If I have inspection questions, I'll call them. They're a resource to assist the county government. Because again, one of the things about Texas is that Texas tried to do its best to pass power to the lowest level possible, right? So the state fire marshal's office has no authority to come and tell me what to do. Does that make sense? Even if I'm doing the wrong thing, they can come tell me that I'm doing the wrong thing. But if the commissioner's court is on my side, they can tell them to go kick rocks, right? And they wouldn't do that. Like generally, they're good people, but they're advisors. So to ask them to come and like enforce the code, they're really not going to do that. You can call another county that you can call that has brought in the state fire marshal's office is Fannin County. They brought them in because, again, this is going to sound negative, and it's really not. It's just a fact. They kind of hurt you in a way. Because the layperson thinks that, if the state fire marshal's office didn't find anything, why are you being so mad, county? Well, they did a walkthrough, and they were looking for emergency exits and anything that they could visually see. They didn't actually inspect those reports that came in, and they're probably not, right? Because that's not their job. Again, they were set up to be act as advisors, and then the local county government was to enforce the actual fire code. So that's the state fire marshal aspect. As to whether or not you need a fire marshal, I'm indifferent to, because there's like the only requirements per the Texas government code to be a fire marshal is that you have to take an oath, you have to be bonded, and you cannot be associated with the buying or selling of fire apparatus. That's it. So like, if you don't sell fire apparatus, the commissioner's court can meet tomorrow and swear you in as a fire marshal. That doesn't make you a competent fire marshal. So you got to be careful on making sure that you have a competent fire marshal. Yes, I do suggest that eventually you get a fire marshal, but you want to do your due diligence and make sure you're getting the right one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
The other option is you can, and per the Texas government code, you can contract with if one of your municipalities has a fire marshal, you can contract them out to represent the county.
How about a neighboring county that has one?
The neighboring county, I'd have to do some more research on. I'm not sure, because the Texas government code is kind of weird in its wording. Like anybody in the state of Texas can call me to assist them with a fire investigation. but it specifically says fire investigation, it doesn't say the word inspection. So again, because, some of this could lead to temporary restraining orders, which means going before judges and juries that don't know the fire code. You gotta make sure you're airtight on what you do. There's not a lot of room for interpretation, so to answer that question correctly, the contractor in another county, I would have to get some clarification on that, but you the contractor, the municipality, I'm gonna leave y'all with a couple of fire protection engineering consultant companies. Now, what you gotta be careful with on these companies is they will all take your money. But they do not all have 855 experts like the ones that I'm recommending. But I knew before all of this stuff was going on, I knew them before this stuff, right? And so, I just don't recommend anybody.
Right.
Did those answer your questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Anybody else?
Questions from the audience?
I can't tell you how grateful I am.
Oh,
that
we
you
have
mentioned
questions from the audience.
Oh, we've got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir. Now OSHA has a fire brigade. All OSHA law requires it. It's 29 CFR 1910.156. I think that requires the battery facilities to fully fund a competent fire department to address the issue that they create.
Now, so that's one of those that's open for interpretation because the fire code does not ever reference OSHA and say that it shall do these things. So my personal interpretation and because I dealt with a lot of fire brigades in Houston, so like ExxonMobil's, the big plants there, they'll have fire brigades and stuff. So they, if they choose to have a fire brigade, then they fall under more OSHA stuff. And that's what OSHA tells the fire brigade, what they have to have, the resources, the training, all that kind of good stuff.
Yes, sir. I just point out that OSHA is law, is my point. So my interpretation is they're fair of them.
Yeah.
Can you give
can
your
you-
name? Can you give your name just because that way the secretary can make sure.
Sorry, for the record, Bruce Knightsky, Gillespie County.
Thank you.
That's not.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're right or wrong on that. I'm just saying that it's gonna be a tougher battle than the basics that I was kind of telling you to start out with. Because there's, like I said, there's a laundry list of stuff that I haven't even really gotten into. Because it's like I'm playing with a toddler that hasn't learned to walk yet, so why am I gonna send them to ballet school? Right? So like, we've got to learn to walk first, and then we'll talk about physical gymnastics and that outlet, right? So I'm not saying that you're right or wrong on that issue. It's just, that's not something I would focus on. Me personally, in our county, we did not focus on that right away because they couldn't meet the basic requirements, in our opinion. A great question, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead. Please state your name first for the record.
Schneider, Gillespie County.
Thank you.
Kevin, could you walk them through what your county did, that process, the amount of the fee that they had, and full particulars on that?
Yes, ma'am. So I started out, the Texas government code, I kind of started with, once they submit an application, you have 30 days to action that. So our county, and because the Texas government code allows it, so in that 352 and 233, it allows the commissioner's court to adopt what's called a permit fee schedule. So basically, if I go inspect a daycare, it costs this much for the inspection. It just has to be realistic, and so I can collect fees for fire protection. And that can only go into a fire protection fund, and it can only be used to enhance fire protection. So I can't, like on my end, once I collect that money, I can't have a pizza party. That's not enhance fire protection. I have to use it for fire protection. So in our case, we had a permit application. Once I advised them that you need to start out with the permit application, they filled out the permit application, and our permit fee schedule, like a lot of them, is what's called a rolling schedule, and it's based off the value of the project. And because of the value of this project, our fee for this project is approximately $55,000 that they have to pay us for a permit fee. And that sounds like a lot, but again, this has been 10 months of my life, 10 months of commissioner's court, judge, lots of other people. We've had to hire third-party experts, because even though I know what I'm talking about, to a judge, I'm going to seem biased.
Right.
So we had to go hire a third party to say, no, Kevin Plummer's not being a big old meanie. He's just making what we're supposed to do, right? So that's what that money is for, and so, the Commissioners Court had adopted a permit fee schedule prior to my arrival. So all I did again was just enforce what we had in place. You have to start with the permit application, and you have to pay the associated fee before we even move our piece to go, to start. So in that case, it's around $55,000. Yes, sir.
State your name, please.
You mentioned about the water tank and connection to your vehicles and all that. Please clarify for me. My understanding was that it's fire, potential big fire. Water is not affected at all. So what's the point of that?
Yes, sir. So the point is, again, these batteries there's batteries inside of modules, inside of containers. These containers are segregated by different fire levels. Because once these batteries get the thermal runaway, there's nothing you can do about it. And most of them are water reactive. So no, that water is not there just for the strict purposes of fighting the base of the fire, but we've got to look at exposure control. Because when you go to a lot of these facilities, I can stick my arms out and touch 2 containers. So if one catches on fire, again, in thermal runaway, there's nothing I can do about that. If it's gonna burn, if it's too close to another container that I have to protect with water, it's gonna catch that next container on fire, which is the next. So you use it for exposure control, but you also have to look at grass fires. So if grass fire starts and gets up onto those, it's gonna catch the containers on fire. So yeah, you're not using it necessarily to fight the actual base of the fire, like the lithium-ion batteries themselves, because they're water reactive. They actually create a worse chemical than they are emitting already, which is nasty enough. But you got to have exposure control and then for the surrounding areas as well. Sorry.
Okay.
Plus water costs money. And our citizens shouldn't have to pay for your facility to make money. And not have anything.
Go ahead.
Brenda Nichols, I just have a question I'm in from Gillespie County. And Commissioner Cromer, when y'all received paperwork to sign off to issue a permit or stop it, did y'all act on that within a 30-day period?
Yes, ma'am. Within 30 days, I sent them a formal letter saying that all associated documents, and I listed out, the top 10 are rejected. Your entire process is rejected.
Did our commissioner, did the Gillespie commissioner, did y'all do that as well?
Yeah, but actually not received their application.
Have they not received an application? And then how are they going forward with something if they haven't done an application?
We haven't received any formal applications. We had an initial conversation they were doing. We've never received formal.
I'm sorry.
We have never received a formal application.
And so, from what I understand, they have started clearing land out on the 1,000 acres. So is there anything, Judge, that you can do to stop that until they go through the normal process? Because there has to be some point for them to stop.
On the Marshall Springs project, is that what you're referring to? So we got we have a notice determination for our floodplain ordinance that did file one of those, which is a preliminary file to indicate, basically asking the county whether our floodplain ordinance would be applicable to their project. And the county engineer responded to that affirmatively that the floodplain ordinance would apply, and they would require to do additional floodplain engineering for that. We have, other than that, we've not done any other application from really either project. There's a narrative that I think on the county's website, you probably have seen, that they have discussed all the stuff they think they don't need to comply with. But we have not gotten any kind of plans or anything to I guess, that would be subject to review and a response from the county at this point. So Since our meeting with the fire marshal's office, it changed my mind, the way that I view the use of the NFPA. And so I have been working since then to address this issue both for the Marshall Springs and for the harbor project, as far as them trying to push momentum on the project without having to file anything today. So I expect that we'll have something on our commissioner's court agenda very soon, maybe the next meeting next week, to address that issue. But the short answer is we have not, other than that one determination, or we have not gotten any other applications from the other project.
So are they just willy-nilly out there clearing trees, clearing the site?
I have heard that from the Marshall Springs project. They have cleared the site of harbor of trees and the building. But I've been concerned about the Marshall Springs project being cleared. I haven't heard any confirmation that's taking place.
You pursued this to find out if it is.
Yes.
And do we have a qualified, in Gillespie County, do we have a qualified fire marshal as this young man is talking about? I don't want just a good old boy kind of system.
So the fire marshal we have has served in that capacity for a number of years in Gillespie County. We have also retained hazard dynamics and outside engineering firm to assist in the expertise of reviewing these filings as they come in. So we're not expecting our local county fire marshal to be tasked with reviewing all these, the complexity of these projects is obviously outside of this scope of expertise. So I mean, that's the plan. We have outside support to assist this county fire marshal and county engineer on reviewing these. We're not expecting to do it all internally in-house.
So in your educated and experienced opinion, I think that the Gillespie County Commissioners Court feels any sense of urgency about the situation?
I can't speak for the court in entirety. I did, and so like I said, I expect to hopefully have something on our next meeting next week to address the concerns about those projects. But you have to ask each of the court members, their individual opinion. I can't speak for them.
Thank you very much.
May I clarify something? And I just want to clarify one of your questions about like the tree removal and stuff. You gotta keep in mind that what is the judge gonna sign off on, right? And so there's probably not a judge in Texas that's gonna make them stop clearing trees and dirt. That's essentially what we're doing right now. So you just have to decide as a county what is the threat, and again, our county decided the threat was the batteries themselves. So that's why we stopped the batteries. Just trust me, I heard a lot of negativity once the restraining order went in, and there was still like equipment moving around. Which is it's not against the law to clear dirt and trees from the land that you have a lawful place to be. I understand your thought processes, and maybe we'll get to a point to where we can stop them before they start. It's just my opinion that they're not there as of right now. But and Hazard Dynamics, that was one of the two companies that I would recommend. So that's run by a man named Dr. Eric Archibald. He's a professor at the University of Texas. He's been in on this stuff way before a lot of other people were. So if Hazard Dynamics, Dr. Eric Archibald was reviewing my documentation, like his word reigns supreme to me, because he knows what he's doing.
That's good.
Okay. We really need to get back on track with our agenda. We'll have an opportunity for additional public input at the end of the meeting. But
I'll make it quick. I just don't, I'd like to ask you what actually triggered this application? These packets that they sent to you, that's where, I mean, did they voluntarily just send you some packets, or did you find out about them and tell them you wanted it? Can you just explain what triggered them?
Yeah, this project actually started before I was sworn into office of Van Zandt County Fire Marshal's office. So, our Commissioner of Precinct 2, Cliff Williams, drafted he's a lawyer by trade, so he drafted a letter in conjunction with our district attorney, Tom Curry, and sent him a letter like on December 15th, like 10 days before I got sworn in, and gave them a deadline on when they had to submit this stuff. I believe it was like February 1st, the first packet that we got. So February 1st was our first, okay, we got the application, we got stuff, that was the first 30 days, first time the 30-day clock started. And so to be proactive again, Commissioner Cliff Williams got designated as the best solar panel commissioner, so he got proactive, and now we kind of have a system, and every time, because they have fires in the county government, you have checks and balances. And so they have to file something with the county clerk's office. So every time the county clerk's office got something from one of these companies, Commissioner Williams would send them a preemptive letter saying, if you're gonna build what I think you're building, you're gonna have to follow the fire code. Now, as a lawyer, he said it a lot better than I did, but it was an official letter, so we were reactive with the first one, where we were kind of a little late to the game. And then we got proactive, which is what I think good organizations do. And then we started sending those letters out to places that had just filed something with the clerk, not even any dirt had been moved or anything. So, does that answer your question?
All right. Thank you very much,
Sure.
Kevin. With that, I'm going to call on our Mountain Home Volunteer Fire Department Chief, Brian Alexander, to come on up and talk to us about fighting lithium-ion battery fires. Pass it.
Well, Kevin almost covered everything. My only concern is that everybody needs to understand about rural firefighters is mainly the water. Money is a big issue for everybody. So yes, training, like I said, Kevin talked about a lot of it. Equipment, and on top of that, the runoff, there's several little things about this. I've been dealing with it for about a year because we've been told it's probably Mountain Home. I don't like that. We don't like that. We hate it. Okay. I'll show you all the water we have in the county with tenders, which is our water trucks. We don't have enough water to put out on one system. So, yeah. So you put that, and you talk about battery plants. So it's a big concern. But like I said, a lot has to do about money, funding and stuff. I try to play a different avenue with the company that's supposedly coming our way to play the good and the bad. And I'll be honest with you, I got nothing. No phone calls back. I tried to ask about water sources. What are we going to do? Stuff like that. And I've got nothing. I have a little issue with if you're not going to tell us the hazardous stuff about it, and describe to us what we make at the run across, we don't need it. So, but like I said, sounds like to me, it's gonna be one of those things that, from what I'm getting at, is it's gonna be a fight. Can't really stop it, but the more we fight, the more we throw at them, the worse it's gonna make it. And maybe they decide to go somewhere else, but, hopefully they'll come to Kirk County or Westminster. Because if it happens in Westminster County, guess what? That's where we're going to. So, it's gonna take everybody in the world to do something. In my area, where they want to put it out, have subdivision. And like I discussed with some, what do I worry about? I worry about battery plant, I worry about subdivision. So puts a lot on my side that I need to worry about. So pretty dangerous in my opinion. So,
Brian, isn't Mountain Home like the only volunteer fire department in Kirk County that's been adequately trained and has necessary equipment to fight the lithium-ion battery fires?
Much as you can.
Yeah.
But like I said, the biggest problem is water.
Oh, absolutely.
It's kind of one of those deals, our nature is to put it out.
Sure.
And so, we can't put out a lithium battery, but we try to worry about other structures.
Absolutely.
Look at, everybody in this room has a lithium battery. You have with you. You have a phone. Okay. Think about how many structures are having one battery that is also a weed eater. A power tool. So you put that by multiples of thousands. Pretty scary. So.
Yeah. And I've been hearing you know, like I'm with the Centerpoint Volunteer Fire Department. I know we haven't been trained in putting out lithium battery fires. But tell me, what's the cost of your bunker equipment? You show up and there's a plume of smoke that's quite toxic.
It's just honest or whatever, that's $6,500 for bunker fans and coats.
Yeah.
So, as a volunteer, it's very expensive. If we don't have extra funds just to go in.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, if we think that these companies are gonna come in and hand us over money and give us stuff, that's just not gonna happen.
No.
My other concern that I have about it is, we all know they're gonna come and go. What's gonna happen with the equipment that's sitting there? We're scared. Nobody's maintaining, nobody's looking at it. So what's gonna happen? Because we all know that grant money's gonna go away, the funding's gonna go away, and they're not gonna make as much money as I thought, and they're gonna probably build belly up. So.
If I jump in real quick, Brian, appreciate you being here, and also, thank for, I don't know if I told you, thanks for what you did during the Kerrville flooding. Appreciate that. One of the things to point out, which I appreciate you mentioning, is the biohazard. So, we have a constituent out in West Texas. They put a battery storage facility near his property line, very close to his property line. And the concern was that they put it in a drainage area that goes into a major river over there. He requested to get the MSDS sheets of what basically he's trying to find out what chemicals in there, because he had suspicion. Basically, it's called PFAS, PFAS. He had concern that the PFAS chemicals that were in those battery fire suppression systems, I believe it was, would end up in the water supply and be a real problem if they didn't catch on fire. And it took him months, like many months, to finally get them to give him any information. And his concern, the reason was because, if y'all know Cannon Air Force Base, out in Clovis, New Mexico, they had been fighting lifeline fires with a foam to suppress the fire. And that foam ended up leaching into the water system, and a local dairy farmer had to euthanize over 3,000 cattle because of the chemical getting into the water. And so I appreciate you bringing that up, and that just gave me an opportunity to share the concerns of the chemicals on a higher level than just in our cell phone, if they end up contaminating, especially. There's been a lot of bad behavior by many of these companies that have come in and put these batteries next to people's houses and in waterways
And schools.
and so there is a lot of concern there. So I just wanted to piggyback on what you said and point that out. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brian?
Esther Snyder, Gillespie County. Chief, my concern is our volunteer fire departments and our professional fire departments are going to be exposed to hydrogen fluoride. There is no respirator filter for that chemical, and one drop will literally go through your skin. How are you discussing this with your crews, and how are you going to protect them from that?
Well, we're gonna have to invest in more equipment, and we'd like to say if they do come, that they would fund us for that, but like I said, I seriously doubt that, so, I guess Commissioner Court gonna have to help us out with it, right? If it does, yes, we're gonna have to get more training, we're gonna have to get more equipment. And then of course, once we're exposed, that's when we're gonna have to figure out where we're going. So on the volunteer side, it's gonna be very tough. Just gonna have to happen, so, and like I said, asking them to help out the companies, this is not gonna happen, they're not gonna do it. Don't see it. If they won't give you a phone call back and explain to you what they're gonna build and what they're gonna do, if they're gonna have water source or retention ponds, they're not gonna return your phone calls about that, they're not gonna do nothing else.
Yeah. Well, you know, these fires last for days. You're gonna have to use your SCBA apparatus. So you're gonna be running out of air left and right.
Yep.
Uh,
To give you an example, our airbags that we wear is $10,000.
Yeah.
So.
Well, just to follow on, I'm Bruce Knight, speaking to Gillespie County, just to follow along on the NCAAs. So it's a 45-minute path, because it's 5 minutes to get in, 5 minutes to get out, 5 minute reserve. So you've got 30 minutes in there, but when the guy comes out, you'll turn them on and send back in. You're gonna need 10 guys. You need 2 in, 2 out. You need a fully functional fire department by my estimation is just back of the envelope for Harper, for a small facility, there'd be a minimum of 21 men full-time just to address
Sure.
any incident there.
Sure. Well, here in Kerr County, we're really good about, mutual aid. So Mountain Home VFD won't be the only ones on site. But will all the other departments have the training and equipment required? That's the crazy thing here.
Yeah, if it's not affecting them, then it may not be worried about at that time about the training. And of course, if it's not affecting them, why would they spend money on it?
Right. Anybody else for?
Yeah, I would say my understanding is, the only thing that I've understood that you can do is you just have to sit upwind and watch it burn, like you're not even supposed to engage it at that point, so, yeah.
Pretty tough.
Pretty much, but like I said, in my area, we're talking about putting, I have a subdivision.
Yeah.
And like I said, depending on how it's going, do I focus on containing that, or do I focus on the residents over there?
Yeah.
And like I said, we don't know until it happens, so. Hopefully it doesn't come, but.
Yeah, and I did file a bill, that we did get a hearing on, but they didn't let it go any further than that. I can speculate on why they didn't move, but it was a 500-yard proximity bill to at least get it away from any properties had to be at least 500 yards from any property, or they were able to get landowner agreements. And unfortunately, that bill died, but we'll be bringing that back again next session. So, and hopefully,
I understand that Governor Abbott is in favor of all of this. So with that in mind, if that be the case, then I would expect our state governor, legislators to do whatever they need to do to put it in action, that they have to provide the funds to these local departments to buy the equipment and to train and to take responsibility for the actions that they are promoting within our state.
I had a question, too. You're talking about all of the training and equipment, but I haven't heard anything about medical personnel. If you have to take a whole neighborhood to the hospital or EMS or EMTs come.
So there is a incident in California where somebody was talking to me about, actually, you were talking to me about it. The
Moss Landing?
Yeah, I guess it was Moss Landing, and then they had to evacuate many.
1,500 people had to be
Yeah,
evacuated.
and then my understanding is those people still haven't been able to move back in since that happened. So.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you coming, enlightening us. Okay, well, the next item on the agenda is to hear from Mike Hope, who is Public Utilities Commission Director of Public Engagement. I'm sorry. Director of Public Engagement. So, Mike, have a seat. Join us. I think Mike is going to talk a little bit about Public Utility Commission's authority. He and I have had various correspondence, in our desire to have Public Utilities Commission here to meet and hold a coordination and planning meeting on best development in our counties. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike, and have your say.
Thank y'all for hosting me here today. I'd like to start with an overview of how electricity works in Texas. I know this might be a review for some of y'all. I want to put us all on the same footing, make sure we're all using the terms consistently. Now, Texas, the electric utility industry is divided into three big segments. We got the power plants that generate electricity, the poles and wires that transmit electricity from one place to the other, and the retail electric providers who buy electricity on the wholesale market, sell it to customers that you pay your bill to. And you may have heard this referred to as the deregulated market we have in Texas. And most of the state, those three functions, generation, transmission, retail, are performed by separate companies. But in some cities or co-ops, one entity does all three. As in the case, the Kerr Public Utility Board has retail and transmission, and they will soon have generation to get that Colorado County plant built.
Now, by law, in the utilities code, batteries fall in the generation segment. This is not an opinion, this is how it is, and the definition of generation in the statute.
And I'll just state that it makes no sense because they don't generate electricity, they consume it.
That's the statute.
Okay, I understand.
And so I'm gonna focus on generation, because yeah, that's the statute that we have, and we're bound by statute. Before I get into that, let's talk about
That's what
two
needs to change.
more entities, talk about how they interact with each other and the market. So the Electric Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT, and Public Utility Commission of Texas, PUCT. ERCOT doesn't own or operate power plants or poles or wires or build people. It manages the flow of electricity across 75% of the land mass of the state, including Central Texas. ERCOT is like the air traffic controller and ensures the system operates efficiently. They're also the stock exchange, where power from the generators is bought and sold. ERCOT's a nonprofit corporation. They're governed by a board of directors, overseen by us, the Public Utility Commission, and the state legislature. And the Public Utility Commission of Texas, we also govern and operate power plants or transmission lines. We implement laws passed by the legislature, and we can only operate within that authority granted by the legislature. We're primarily economic regulator. We concern rates and markets. And that's our primary focus. We're about, I think we're now up to 256 people, so as far as state agency goes, we're not even, not one of the big ones. But yeah, because of the industry we regulate, directly affects everybody's lives and livelihoods. We can't live without electricity. It's really understanding the importance of the work we do. We're committed to that mission. So how is power generation, including batteries, built in ERCOT? So building power generation is a business decision made by those companies, just like the ones made by many of the other businesses here in this room. Can their product, in this case electricity, be sold at a higher price than what it costs to produce it? And as a reminder, in a deregulated market, there's no guarantee that a company is going to make a profit. And those companies bear the risk of the business failing. We as the customer ratepayers don't bear that risk. Now, it is up to the companies to decide what kind of that generation to build, whether it's a natural gas plant or a battery, and it's up to the company to decide where they will build it. And battery storage companies can decide to buy land or lease land. But because of the deregulated market, those decisions are driven by the finances and economics, not by decisions at the PUCT. Now, our jurisdiction over power generators do not need a permit from the PUCT to own or operate a power plant. People are sometimes shocked to hear this. You don't need to come to the PUCT before you build a power plant and get permission. They do have to register with the PUC. I brought a copy of the power generation company registration form. It's 7 pages long. It's mostly contact information, the names of your former parents, and an affidavit that the company signed saying that it's all true, and then a table on the back saying where your individual generating units are located and what type of generating units those are. So that's when people talk about power generation registration, this is what it is. It's not that long. The PUCT staff, they review this form for completeness, making sure that the blanks were filled in. And we have to notify the registrant within 15 days of an incomplete form. So it's not a review about any other aspects about the power generation project. And we don't have the authority to say where a generation unit may be located, or do we have the ability to determine what type of generation they can build. Now we get kind of the ERCOT planning process. And so I want to kind of set the record straight about ERCOT's role in building batteries and generation. And it says ERCOT doesn't own, build, or operate power generation. We're deciding where it would be. But because they manage the flow of electricity across the system, they need to understand the amount of generation available and the demand for electricity by consumers in the future. So power generator developers let ERCOT know about potential projects very early in the development process. And these projects may or may not ever get built based on business decisions that we discussed earlier. But ERCOT tracks those potential projects as they're in development to determine what the future conditions of the grid will be. And as the development and construction process, the specific project goes forward, that estimate gets more certainty. You hear about the interconnection queue. That's the kind of list of projects that are on track to be built. But the ones that are real far out may or may not get built. Projects fall off the interconnection queue all the time. And as you get closer to energy being energized, those are the ones we're more certain about. I'm going to talk a little bit about public safety. Guys, the fire folks said those were really great presentations. So on the PUC side, power generators are required to file emergency operations plans with ERCOT. And those are plans for how they'll respond and communicate before and during a disaster. But it's more about their response to a disaster. And every year they file a summary of that full plan with the PUC and the full plan with ERCOT, and then an affidavit from the company president saying that the contents of the plan are correct. There are also weatherization standards that were adopted after the 2021 winter storm. And these are designed to ensure that power generators can operate in extreme heat and cold. And ERCOT conducts inspections of those power generators to verify compliance with the weatherization standards. On PUC, we do not do any inspections of power generators. I'm going to talk a little bit about fire safety. It doesn't cover anything. I just say that talk about the House Bill 3824 that the legislature passed. About fire safety standards for battery storage system. And like I said, I gave Department of Insurance and State Fire Marshal jurisdiction over that particular bill. And then the PUCT doesn't have any role in those in the House Bill 3824 on fire safety standards. For any of you PUCs we're talking about today. And then the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act, you're keenly interested in. So legislature passed the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act and to prohibit contracts with certain countries and foreign companies for critical electric grid equipment and critical electric grid services. ERCOT requires market participants who are participating in the electric market to identify any purchase, lease, or receipt of any critical electric grid equipment or critical electric grid services that market participant knows to be from a Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act designated company or a Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act designated country. There were some companies that did not submit those reports. ERCOT notified those companies, gave them a chance to fix the issue and submit the report. And then ERCOT and the PUCT are investigating those companies who fail to file and will pursue enforcement of those where needed to ensure compliance. So that's called under our enforcement authority. And that's always good. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify the authority of the PUC and regulating battery energy storage. I hope it helps better understand how this works and kind of the limits of the PUC authority to dictate about these projects and happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir. I'll go first. Director, thanks for being here. Appreciate that. The first question I have, so if there is a violation, is it TCEQ that would then deal with that violation, or where did that violation go?
For the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act?
Just for any of them?
We have enforcement authority over the utilities, over public utility regulatory act. And so violations of PURA fall under our authority. If you violate, ERCOT has its own set of rules called protocols or something. They can also, there's also They do investigation enforcement over violations of their rules.
Okay.
We have a division of compliance and enforcement that investigates violations of PCT. So yeah, we have.
So how many projects have you shut down as a result of a violation that was found?
For the Lone Star Structure Protection Act, none yet. So we've got the companies that have failed to follow reports, and we're in the process of investigating those. Most of them were not people who even owned infrastructure. They were, it's IMREs, I forget exactly what that stands for, but it's people who have been given clearance by ERCOT to get market data. And they are ranging from financial firms to think tanks. So and largely most of those ones that did not submit those forms did not understand that they were required to do it, but they didn't actually own equipment. But we are very clear who is supposed to submit those and who's not.
I just 1 minute here. That's one of this line. Again, with the Department of Energy's Office of Cybersecurity, they're finding that over 90% of grid-scale BESS deployed in the U.S. contain critical components manufactured in China. It just seems to me that, how can that not be happening in Texas? And if you haven't found anything and shut it down, then is there inadequacy in the process?
Or
Or?
the reporting of the Lone Star Structure Protection Act is relatively new. So
Yeah,
it's the first
that's
time
true.
the reports that we're getting back. And so this kind of first pass is, have you filed? Have you filed? And then the substance of those filings, we'll be getting into that. But the first kind of threshold is making sure that everybody who needs that is filed. That's filed the report.
Yeah.
We're in the in the beginning phases of
Understood.
implementing the Lone Star Protection Act.
We encourage you to accelerate your efforts. My understanding is there's 300 missing attestations, so
Question.
now let Wes get back to his.
Characterize our concern, now that we have you face to face, and thank you for coming out. But we are in charge of health, welfare, and safety. We got a full dose of that on 4th of July, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We've been angry about that way before that. And we still remain, because we're left out of the loop on the most important things to assess risk of these facilities. And that has to do with things like the emergency operations plans that ERCOT gets. We're not getting it. It's not being shared. We have no way to mitigate that risk from a fire department, a county perspective, because the whole development side of this is being circuitous and not upfront about what they're bringing and how to mitigate that risk based upon what we see as safety standards and what is actually written in law. We really have no idea. To be completely frank, I would like you to bring that back and say the whole reason we gathered together as a commission because we have concerns and we're left in the dark about what's coming here and the risk that it poses on our counties. We need your information. We need your plans locally. Otherwise, we can't respond. And you don't want another event like we had on the 4th of July, be it Highway 479 and I-10. And I'm concerned that it easily could be because we've seen 2 examples in California. And that's just an idea of what's coming here times 1,000, right? 1,000 different vessels. And with that amount, the risk is there, but yet, that's why we're here, is fill us in on the risk so we can prepare and understand, and then have a voice at the table, which this is our table, the first time we've had a voice, but it needs to carry capacity, so I'm asking you. Thank you.
I will definitely carry that.
Mike, I want to tell you about the state fire marshal, Kelly Stelter, came and presented to the Kerr County Court back in January of this year. And, very informative presentation about battery energy storage systems. and the various regulations that were just covered by Fire Marshal Palmer. And it was very interesting, you know, they made a statement, you know, they kind of asked questions. Are battery energy storage systems safe? And then they went on to say, well, yeah, statistically, when malfunctions occur, data shows that they happen in less than 2% of the installations. So bear with me, but if you see the problem here, it looks like from ERCOT's plan that you're going to put at least 900, if not 1,000 of these things across Texas. And, you know, if I do the math, that means we're accepting 18 to 20 thermal runaway, you know, catastrophic fires in Texas. And frankly, one is too many, but it's unimaginable that we would want 18 to 20 of these things that result in a major catastrophic event. And that's from the state fire.
Well, can I?
Sure.
So
Please.
again, you guys talked about in your remarks just now and previously that we are bringing them, ERCOT is bringing them, PUC is bringing them. We're not the investors. We're not the ones building those projects. And so, and again, that's not a value decision or policy decision on the part of the PUC. Like, this is the authority that we have in the law that. And so, whether the type of generation bill is those are investment decisions made by those companies. And I appreciate the concern. I'm hearing that part. But saying our ability to dictate that is limited by law.
I appreciate you coming. I have a question. So I feel like we're looking at the electric grid completely backwards. A small or a large data center uses as much electricity and water as a small city. What happens when you guys are underproducing the actual energy that we need? If these things are considered, they're designated, I know it's not your definition as power generators, which they're not. What happens when we're deficient in producing actual electricity to our grid? Because these things go for 2 hours and then they're done. But our grid is no longer stable. We're just depending on batteries. It seems like, I know this is not your fault, but I feel like the security or the infrastructure is not being dealt with the approach of using batteries to stabilize our grid. It stabilizes in a short time frame for an emergency situation. But I mean, and I would say to everyone in this room, we need to be looking at another alternative. Like if we're going to complain about batteries, what are we going to be happy with? Are we going to be happy with nuclear energy plants?
Yes.
That's what we need to start focusing on, shifting the direction for Texas to something that actually produces freaking power, not just stores this and then causes but who wants a nuclear reactor in your county?
I don't mind. They've come a long way.
So I mean, I've kind of talked about that, the kind of broad question that we call resource adequacy, the making sure there's enough power to serve the demand of Texas is something we spend a lot of time worrying about. It's one of our main jobs is to worry about that. Also, given the kind of limits that in Texas, we can't just tell people to go build. And so the business decision by a battery operator is going to buy power. When it's cheap, a night, store it and then sell it when the price is higher. And when the prices are higher, usually when there's more demand and conditions are tighter, when the difference between supply and demand is closer. And so that's when the batteries make that business decision. Well, now prices are higher. I'm gonna sell this thing that I bought cheap and sell it, sell it for a higher price. And then the other thing I will say is that, thanks to the legislature and the voters of Texas, we passed the Texas Energy Fund, that's $10 billion in state investment in low interest loans to dispatchable power plant developers. Batteries are specifically excluded from that program. This is the program that Kerrville Public Utility Board, they're the first recipients of funds from the Texas Energy Fund. And so that really is a significant investment from the taxpayers of Texas to support those investments and dispatchable generation, and then making sure that we've done other things about how the wholesale market functions to make sure that we're getting the power that we need without having that kind of strong arm being able to say, you build this there. So it's a delicate.
I have two questions for you, and you may have to get back with me on the answers. One is off of the question, you mentioned the data centers. Who gets priority if we have a disruption in power due to like a winter storm or something like that? Do data centers get the priority over the citizens in that situation? That's the first question.
So this is the Senate Bill 6 that passed last session is seeks to address a lot of these issues. So what even before that, what ERCOT has really tried to do is to get the data centers, the large loads, to enroll in programs at ERCOT where if there is emergency conditions on the grid, things are really tight, where ERCOT can go and say, you've got to turn it off now. And before those weren't mandatory, but Senate Bill 6 kind of sets up the structure to make sure that those large loads kind of are playing within that system and really sets up a much better structure to handle those loads. Because some of these data centers that are coming in are the size of, not even a small city, like a Waco-sized city. They can be huge, and they use a lot of electricity, a lot of water.
Are you saying that it's voluntary for them to power down?
So currently it is, but under the Senate Bill 6 that was recently passed, and we're in the process of doing those, they're going to be, it's going to be, there are going to be rules around, how they shed, how those get turned off in emergencies. Exactly. The question the legislature was trying to answer is exactly this. Making sure that data centers aren't on when people's homes are.
That's Marty writing bill ideas.
So that's exactly what the legislation trying to accomplish and what we're trying to accomplish. Writing right now.
Yes, just real quick.
15 years ago, I worked in cloud buildings in San Jose area in California. The cloud, those buildings were constructed with their own power plants with a double redundancy of generation. They signed a contract with the cities that if the city had a problem, they would run the generator to fuel the city. When did this get pushed back down around here? We have to take care of these guys. When Michelle had all the money for their function, and they can't come up with enough power for themselves. So it's, on the data centers, they can decide how they're going to serve, their power needs. So they can build generation, and within their fence line, many do, a lot of times it's, driven by, how much, their business operations, like, whether or not, how much they absolutely need to stay on. It's a lot of commercial, it's a big business decision. So they can have they can build a generator within their facility. They can locate next to a power plant, whether that's a gas plant or wind or solar. So Or they can go out and buy power wholesale market, but it's not, it's not just ERCOT, we're deciding who's gonna get it out of charity, it's. But my question is, why don't they supply their own power, they're having on outside the city? And, you said if they locate next to a power plant, that just gives them front row access.
There are some in West Texas that are working on that, but that is a problem, definitely in the cities. The other issue we have there that I've seen is some of them are trying to do their own thermal generators for their data centers like near San Antonio. The problem they have is they're going to be putting those thermal generators next to residential areas, which will have a problem. My next question is when we have a net, or we're basically operating under the assumption that there's a net positive of those batteries existing and putting power into the grid. Is there a determination of excluding the negative environmental concerns that we have? What is the net positive of those batteries existing in our grid at the moment? Is it 1% additional generation during times of need? And that might be, that's what I was saying, there might be, you might have talked to engineers.
Well, so I think it's just, you kind of talk about the overall capacity, so, just the, amount of megawatts that, all the generators in Texas could put on the grid at one time. Their nameplate capacity. Batteries are now, I just looked on ERCOT's website, it's about 7.7% of the total generating capacity they put on. At any one time.
That with the assumption of 1,000 of these existing, that you said.
So that's current. That's right now.
Yeah.
It's about 7.7%. And so, that's and possibly with anyways, how that number, that proportion is going to change because we are building more thermal, or building more, wind and solar. But that if that percentage changes, I'm sure how it's going to affect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
Mike, you're familiar with this chart from ERCOT's Advancing Reliability 2024 State of the Grid? Yeah, I've sent you a copy of some of the correspondence, but I mean, it's showing best capacity from currently 10 gigawatts going up to 35.8 by 2029. So that's more than 3 times.
Yeah.
It sure looks to me like, it's part of a plan. It's being anticipated.
It's,
And
a lot of people investing in batteries in Texas.
Yeah.
It's business decisions by those investors.
Sure.
And so I think it's.
And you'd agree that
planning for.
Yeah.
Those being built, not planning for the to be built. Yeah, I mean, so, they're not the, they're not the PCC are the ones.
Yeah.
Making those investment decisions, but they're not need to react to the electricity that's put on the grid.
I mean, all I can say is, boy, Texas is making a huge mistake. We are becoming so reliant on unreliable power that, wind and solar, that it is pushing us to do best, which is a Band-Aid approach, and putting huge risks on all of us in terms of our safety and the environment. And it just makes no sense to me. And that's why I'm committed to trying to fight this stuff. Doesn't make sense.
Donnie McMahon, Kirk County. My question is simple. Who do we need to be talking to at the state level that is concerned about public safety? Generating power is one thing, but we're talking about volunteer fire department people, schools. Who do we talk to get some answers on safety?
Yes, I can answer for you. So we are working on legislation. Representative Trusclair from Gillespie County and Kendall County. She had a bill filed dealing with permitting for these BESS facilities. And I don't think that one even got a hearing in the State Affairs Committee, which is disappointing. I had some very strong words with the State Affairs Chair regarding some of those bills. And anyways, like my bill, they at least gave my bill a hearing, didn't go anywhere. What's going to happen is there's a shift in the legislature right now of who's making the overall decisions from leadership. And so that is changing, and you will see a bunch of us, especially in the Hill Country, having more influence on getting those bills passed. We'll still need the Senate side, and we'll need the governor to support those bills also. So that it ultimately comes down to legislation, which is what Mike mentioned. He talked about the idea that batteries are listed as generators, and I just pulled it up in the code, and it is in there. So I've made notes. I have a running list of bills, and I have made notes in there that we need to look at why they're being listed as generators as generation, and if there's a way to move them. And so we're working on a lot of legislation that, and the reality is it takes about 6 years for a new bill to come into conception. It generally takes 6 years to win your peers over in public support and get those bills. I've watched this happen years over and over again of legislation that I've worked on, that it took 6 years before we got enough support to actually get it passed and signed by the governor. So, well, we are exactly just like this board right now. There is across the state, there are a lot of. Yes, ma'am. That's why when I mentioned it takes 6 years, because like for this situation right now, this is fairly new. This is probably within the last 2 years that this discussion has really come up. And you see it gaining momentum. The fact that this board exists is proof of that. And then you watch in 4 years from now, you're going to have even more counties on board with supporting this and doing their own 391 commissions possibly. And then in 6 years, I think you're going to have enough. Ultimately, your legislators have to know that the citizens are upset about this and they want something done about it. And that, in a way, forces their hand or encourages them to do the right thing. So,
law pertaining to electric generators is 29 CFR 1910.256. And inside of that, any electric generator is required to comply with OSHA law, including lockout, tagout, all kinds of safety mechanisms. We've been trying to get this information in front of people. Leave them as an electric generator so they can be governed under OSHA law.
And that's why I mentioned we have to see why it's listed as a generator, because there might be a good legal reason that you want to have regulation that it's listed as a generator. So,
yep. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hope.
Your name?
Clay Lambert. You said something that kind of bothered me a little bit, because being in the corporate world for quite a while, I've seen it where there's a requirement to turn in reports, like you're required to turn in a report on a disaster plan or weatherization thing. And to a large degree, the companies view that as the requirement is a report. Not the requirement is to prove and show conclusively that we're covered up. So my question to you, and it's a little pointed, it's not meant to be ugly, but is your organization required to review those reports? And out of the 256 people that you have, do you have the expertise there to really drill down and validate those reports?
So no, that's a very, very good question. And in the aftermath of Winter Storm Uri in 2021, that was the exact question that the legislature raised. It's just a check the box exercise. And so coming out of that storm, they greatly strengthened how those emergency operations plans are reviewed. So how practically works is they submit a summary, of it to PUC, but the full report goes to ERCOT, and ERCOT has a team of people who review the substance of those reports and make sure that they can, that they are, they actually do something.
So it's not your agency, it's ERCOT.
So and then ERCOT is the one who does the review. They report to us on their review. If there's enforcement needs to proceed from that on our side and ERCOT side, we work hand in hand with them. Part of the reason for that was resources of the agency, but also concerns around data security. and of the ability of ERCOT to keep those things secure versus PUC ability to keep those things secure. And so the decision of the legislature and the statute was to have, ERCOT doing the actual review of those emergency operations plans. And us kind of having the enforcement of flow from that. So. Yeah.
Have there been occasions where ERCOT says this has been sufficient, turns it back to you, and you go back to?
I can't think of specific instances, but yes, there has been enforcement around those emergency operations plans. I can't quote company names off the top of my head, but yes.
That's true. AC can too. So you talked about the data centers, powering down in an emergency situation, but why are they going to lose money? I read a story, I could be totally mistaken, that they're compensated for turning their electricity off. So they're not losing anything other than productivity.
So, under the kind of pre-Senate Bill 6, so this is the kind of, what we're kind of phasing away from, getting into, where, there was it was a demand response system. So when, in exchange for giving, ERCOT, the control room operators in ERCOT, an on-off switch to your data center, you entered into a contract, with ERCOT, said, if you need my, the megawatts that I'm consuming, we'll be compensated for that. And so we kind of made it, a business decision, on their part. Senate Bill 6, that system is still going to be in place. The Senate Bill 6 kind of gives, ERCOT and, the system operators, greater control over that, that operations of the data centers, again, just to make sure that this, and the idea is, efficient maintenance, there's both the demand of those, how much they need, but, something that we were discussing in the commission open meeting recently was, if a data center, can't kind of just, ride just kind of minor fluctuations in the voltage on the grid, sometimes they're kind of safety, safeguards are set really tight, where if there's a little fluctuation, they just turn off to protect their equipment. But, if you're losing a customer that large all at once, that's also destabilizing. And so making sure that it's called the voltage ride through problem. So in addition to the demand and, making sure that there's enough electricity to serve them, we also need to make sure that, even if they turn off, that's not also we have to work very closely with those large customers to make sure that the grid is stable.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to go back to those 300 missing attestations. And from what I understand, please correct me if I'm wrong, these are the battery storage companies saying that they do not have Chinese components. Have I grasped that correctly?
No, so this applies to not just battery storage companies, but everybody who operates the critical electrical equipment. So it's power plant owners, but it's also these kind of energy research, energy traders. There's a couple thousand entities that are responsible for that. Yeah. So please. Yeah.
So the ones that you were concerned about, Linda, that you had mentioned and you also, Rich, mentioned those.
Yep.
Who are they supposed to turn those into?
ERCOT.
Well,
those
under the law, it's the state agency is responsible for obtaining the attestations. I'm not real clear. You might be able to help me, Mike, but I was under the impression it's the state agency. ERCOT is not a state agency, so by default, it's PUCT.
So they submit them to ERCOT, and then we work with them. Yeah, so we have authority. So we work together.
this thing. You said that you were recently, this is a new legislature, I understand that and all. But, you know, we heard earlier that a county is given 30 days from the time they were given a report from one of these best plants, and they must respond to it, or it's considered true. How much time are you going to give them to turn in these attestations?
So, yeah, it's,
Good question.
We've got, the 300 or so who did submit. We followed, gave them, notices that they didn't submit and required them to correct that. Most,
Do we have?
almost all of them did. So that's, it's that enforcement action is, and that investigation is currently going on. So I don't, that's our enforcement division is there's an active, into
That's my
that enforcement. So
Do you enforcement mechanisms sufficient to make them comply, or do we need more from the legislature?
So, yeah, we've got, yes, we have a very strong, enforcement, penalty authority. It's for, it is up to $1 million per day per violation. And again, that was something that was strengthened after Winter Storm Uri. And so, that's the maximum. Up to $1 million. We had some, kind of immediately after Winter Storm Uri, where we had some very, very significant, people who, with those violations. So, yeah, we wish I knew off the top of my head. Yeah, we have, millions and millions of dollars in penalties that we issue every year for everything under our enforcement. So, and that, so yeah, we issue penalties and we issue those all the time. So,
Okay.
yeah, I just don't know the number off the top of my head about how many, what our penalty, I want to say.
Somebody on the committee can, you see where I'm going with this? Are we seeing action on best plants that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing?
I know where you're going with it. We unfortunately are not seeing any action, which is why we're trying to get TDM involved and get to the bottom of it.
So, and I don't remember what's been filed in the public docket on who hasn't. So, yeah, with whatever's public, I'll get to you.
So I had a quick question. It was my understanding that SB 2368 was requiring these companies to say if they have equipment from China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, and that's what the attestation is that they're filing to say whether they do or do not. So to me, that sounds like battery storage, and you're saying it's other types of companies too. But
Correct. It's not, yeah,
but
the
that's
Infrastructure Protection Act is not limited to batteries.
so it does refer to this bill, and then they may or may not be getting any kind of violation because it's just taking time to get to each company.
Yeah, we haven't issued penalties for,
And this,
haven't issued any fines.
and this just started in September of this year.
So, yeah.
I think it's House Bill
Investigation
150.
I thought that was, I don't know.
I would say,
That's the second bill that goes with it.
Oh, okay.
ERCOT had revealed 500 violations from the original Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act. And they gave them until June 30th to those who were delinquent to submit the attestation. And you're saying that after that date of June 30th, there were still 300 who were non-compliant. Is that where the 300 is?
I'm not sure where the 500 number is. I don't, so my understanding was that there were 300 companies. I'm not sure about the 500 number.
But most of those, I mean, this was the first time that there had been any attempt to look at that since 2021, basically, because the Lone Star Infrastructure Protection Act came in 2021.
So,
Right.
and then there were amendments to it.
that just came,
Right, yeah.
just
So
came
these
September first.
So yeah, those requirements are new.
Right. But those requirements are actually since they made this discovery and asked for these attestations June 30th, right? So this is I'm just trying to say, are these dealing with infractions that were in the 4-year period?
So these folks who didn't submit those attestations, in the last, few months, when that deadline went into effect, yes.
Well, I don't understand that because then the June 30th deadline was before it came into effect, so it must have,
Yeah,
there's some confusion.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. But you think you might do an analysis of this or?
So, yeah, I'm not.
Report?
When it.
Yeah, we'll have, as we go through the enforcement process, once we start, issuing, notices of violation and, those, it gets to be public at that point. Yeah. And then, then as we go through the enforcement process, that's, all that in open commission dockets.
Any other questions for Mike from the board?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Again, thank you for coming.
Before we have one more, and this is going to be the last one for Mike.
The vague question very pointedly asked. For example, the question was there a time limit put on the notices that you sent to them in violation of?
So in the letters that were sent to those folks who didn't submit those, there was a deadline when they had to respond. And then, as we go through the enforcement process, there are, our enforcement staff issue specific deadlines when they need to respond and when we take action.
So
I just, off the top of my head, I don't know that date, sorry.
well, that's disappointing because I would think that's a very critical piece of
I'm
information.
not saying it's not known, I just don't know off the top.
Yeah.
Our
But you're
enforcement staff knows.
representing, but you're the representative.
I understand
So
it's
you were gracious enough to come today.
it's unsatisfying when you can't get the answer you want. I apologize.
Yeah, it's hugely frustrating. Can you answer that question and get it back to this committee within a 30, I want to give you within a 30 day.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
The second thing I have to say is, anybody that is aware of anything that's going on in this world knows the real thing for China and what their ultimate goal is in taking over this country. And so for our government, not wanting to get too specific, but for our government, the state of Texas, to have regulations about, we want to know where these batteries come from. For the greater good, let's take out our individual counties and our individual problems and real concerns. Then I don't feel any sense of urgency in your tone and what you have to say that our government, that your department has any sense of urgency about really getting into that and dealing with it. And that's terribly disappointing.
So, I mean, we, have the legislature gave us the authority within the Lone Star Production Protection Act. That's the authority they gave us. And so we'll, enforce, the portions of that act, we'll enforce those laws. So, that's the legislature empowering us, to do that. So that's what I'm saying. We are going through the process to do that. I mean, I understand that's not satisfying, but going through the enforcement process on it. So, and that's,
Urgency and the raw emotion
that everybody in this room feels.
I
I
feel,
don't know where you live, but my guess is you don't live anywhere near one of these facilities. Would that be the right statement?
I actually do. Austin Energy has battery storage projects next to my son's middle school.
Next to what?
My son's middle school.
So, and that doesn't concern you.
I mean, it's, as a state employee, I've been active within the statutes, and statutes of, the legislature's passed and the rules that my commission has passed. So that's what I can do in my professional jobs.
All right. Well, Mike, on behalf of our commission, I thank you very much for coming and talking with us. We hope you'll carry a message back to your commissioners, your board, and I hope this is not a one-off and that we'll have some other dialogue in the future.
Appreciate the time. Thank y'all.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, well, that concludes agenda item 7. Now we're going to get on to discussion on appropriate action on other administrative matters. Are there any? Good. Item number 8 is public comments. We've already allowed quite a few, but if there's any more, we'll take them now.
Out that 15 years ago, the HCESRPC Alliance successfully bought off the wind farm that we put in Plano County. In the current state of renewable energy, that was just in the early stages of this, and so now we've become much more complicated. But citizens working together and united made this happen. I want to make sure you knew that.
Yeah.
The Public Utility Commission canceled the project. The LCRA canceled what they call the certificate of convenience and necessity. And it's kind of a funny term, convenience and necessity. At any rate.
Okay.
So what are some of the learning lessons that I think we could apply here? The current process hits individual companies, not the PUC. It hits individual companies against county governments.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the reasons that you formed what you did. PUC has these regulations. You a minute ago, sir, asked the PUC representative to enlighten you, give you more input so that you could move forward. These site locations that are being picked for festivals all over the place are by and large random, and they're selected on the basis of, in many cases, heirs who want to get some mailbox money. And not all of them, but they're just randomly selected with no consideration given to the safety considerations, the environmental, all the things you've been talking about. The impacts on other citizens around these facilities are horrendous. The citizens that we have to suit up. We all have to suit up. I did 15 years ago to fight off the transmission lines going through my property. State of our scenic hill country suited up to fight off the entire wind farm. It was sent out to the west, and the power supplies, the transmission supply of power, were put on I-10, I-20 in these big old corridors, rather than coming through our properties and cutting down century-old trees and creating havoc. There's like 340 affected landowners on the big line that went from Gillespie County all the way up to Newton, which is in Lancaster County. That's a lot of landowners. That's a lot of constituents who are being pissed off, by the state government and by the PUC. The developers take full advantage of these opportunities to cite the weaknesses within county governments.
Yep.
Also, the vulnerabilities of the people who are going to get things wrong. So I have a paradigm shift that I'm going to propose in a letter to the governor, to the LCRA, the PUC, and the ERCOT. And in this letter, I'm going to suggest that many of the projects, as many as can be, become concentrated on state land or on big parcels of land that can make better use of this. Lands have depleted oil supplies, not anything being done with the land. And they could invite the developers to work with the state. The state could derive income from these projects. So you'd be able to consolidate planning and regulatory work. You'd be able to consolidate power transmission. You could deal, here's one we haven't talked about, you could deal with the life cycle realities of what these projects pose. The average life for a solar project out here is 7 years. The average life that's going to work. There's hailstorms, there's all this other thing. But if they wear out 7 years, these farms are just going to become cemeteries. Sure. Just like wind farms that become out in West Texas. They get subsidies, but the first time they break, they just leave them there. They take down the components and they don't operate again. You could consolidate the firefighting. You've heard much about that. These volunteer fire departments are just not going to be able to deal with the kind of fires we're talking about. And also stormwater runoff. The Marshall Springs project is put on a piece of land that's got about 4% drop. Top to bottom, there's going to be guaranteed flooding with all the. So we can improve the public image greatly. The state could. Many county folks could breathe a sigh of relief if many more of these projects were consolidated into the state level.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mind if I speak to that for a minute?
Go ahead.
I just turned them on.
Turned it off.
Okay, is it Mr. Nichols?
loud.
Is that right? Okay, so just want to address some of those with PUC and the power lines. That's become a very major issue in the Hill Country right now. They're trying to put the largest power lines that have ever come through Texas in the Hill Country. And I'm requesting, I'm trying to fight eminent domain on every angle I can. We're working on legislation to bring to the next session. But also I'm asking PUC currently to utilize the free market. We had Florida Power and Light come through the Hill Country before, and we had people begging for them to come through their property because they were paying anywhere from $100 a foot to $250 a foot to come through properties. And that, keep in mind, I don't want it in the Hill Country, right? But at the same time, 100% against eminent domain, and eminent domain is going to, whether we move it to the flatlands, the corridors, anything like that. But just want to let you know that we are working on legislation. Me and PUC has been very open to communication with me on much of this issue. And so we're trying to fight it. Oh, yes, sir. No problem. So we're working on legislation related to eminent domain. My concern is what we're really doing is we're using the government as a tool to utilize private companies to take away private property ownership. And then two, is that we're currently in talks with PUC on a regular basis, and I'm asking them to utilize the free market instead of just taking people's land from them against their will. My biggest argument is if you get one life on this earth and you work your whole life and you finally buy a piece of property that you truly care about, and whether it's 30 acres, 300, 3,000, whatever, what would you do if a company came, or if the state came across your property and said, there's basically nothing you can do. Yeah, you can hire a lawyer. It's not going to work. We're going to take your property from you against your will, and we're only going to give you the value of the land that it touches and not the when it's going to destroy the rest of your property value.
Can I ask them to meet with you afterward? Because
yeah, just real quick. So Florida Power and Light came through McCulloch County, Mason County, some other counties, and they did it on free market principle. And so they went to landowners, they offered money for those landowners, and those landowners were actually fighting over whose land it was going to come across. They did put in some substations, I'm pretty sure, but the power lines came through and it was under a free market system. So you didn't hear nobody was complaining about it because of the way it was done. The current eminent domain attempt is immoral in my opinion. And so that's why we're having conversations with PUC, and to PUC's credit, they've been open every time that we've reached out to them. So yes, sir. Thank you.
we had one or two other people that wanted input.
I guess this is the best place to stand. This is
Yes.
Yeah.
Most people can hear. My name is Greg, excuse me, rising from Burke County. Born and raised in San Diego, California, moved here 5 years ago, so we still have a lot of good friends back in San Diego County. One of our good friends, Patrice Cannell, lives in Escondido, a small city just north of San Diego in San Diego County. And she had told us in the past that she lived near less than a mile, just over a hill from a best facility there. There's a lot of them in California that are up and running. This particular facility was built February of 2017. On September 5th, 2024, Thursday, about noon, it experienced a thermal runaway fire. So it's less than a mile from her house. And I talked to her on the phone last night to get some details of an eyewitness to one of these fires. And she reported some of the same phenomena that we've been talking about as a potential from a fire. She said it burned for 2 days. Again, they couldn't put it out. They just had to try to contain it, which they did. But it burned for 2 days until it burned itself out. She was over a hill, about a mile away. There was a strong chemical smell, not a smoke smell. She said she never saw smoke from the wind direction, but it was a strong chemical smell that persisted all that day and all night. She and her family had headaches for a couple of days. She could see a dark plume of smoke over the hill from where the fire was. She lost power. A lot of the area lost power. There was an evacuation of the area from that fire and another evacuation from a down power line near the fire event. This facility is also built near a hospital. Now that's their decision. Around here, they're not proposing that. But guess what? Someday I expect they will. The smoke persisted until the next day. And she also sent me several online sites that you may be interested to look up if you have a pen. The Seguro project, SEGURO, is a very large BESS facility proposed in her neighborhood. And it's been proposed for a long time. There's a citizens organization there that appears to be very organized, kind of like y'all, and like all of us, that has been fighting this project. And there's a website that you can look at called Sign the Petition on change.org. Rich, I sent you that. And I was encouraged to look at that page after page after page of information that that organization, a citizens organization, has uncovered about the best facilities and the strategies that they're taking. One of their strategies that I haven't heard around here so much is if a facility is built near private property, that private property, at least in California, will have trouble getting homeowners insurance. Because the insurance companies know that these facilities are prone to fires. That's another angle that. There you go. So that's another angle we can pursue. So again, the Seguro project in Escondido, California. The Otay Mesa fire that Jeff, you mentioned in South San Diego County was built in 2000 and it went up in flames. I think it was May of 2024. Facility lasted 4 years. The fire lasted for 2 weeks because apparently the entire facility was involved.
And then, of course, the Moss Landing in the Central California coast, that one burned for a week or two. There was also a best facility proposed for La Mesa, which is just east of San Diego, within the metropolitan area. And that one, was terminated partly because of citizen opposition. I don't know that that was the entire reason that that project was canceled, but at least citizen opposition then had an effect on that. There are other best facilities proposed or building in Logan Heights and Calais in San Diego area. So these things are coming, and all the dangers that we've talked about are real, and this is from secondhand, but from an eyewitness to what happens. And I have some other websites that you might be interested in. If you want to see, I can send it to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take one more.
Per county resident. I graduated from high school in San Diego. My sister has horse boarding there. My dad worked at Baltimore County. I was schooled in People and Land First, just from all of those things. I'm married to the military, also lived on the East Coast. And so I only have observations and things to insert into the conversation, if I may. And we were on Cape Pendleton, sir. Here's my observation. This is about demand and customers, and these are words I've heard tonight. What caused the demand? Who are the customers? It is not, they are not Texans. Texans has its own grid. I'm sure that makes us very attractive. No one's mentioned that. There's a grid for New York, there's a grid for LA, there's a grid for Texas. Because of all of this land management and generational wisdom, we have natural resources. We have power stations, electricity that's cheaper. We are attractive to the globe, not just to the companies that you listed. And I look back on Epcot, some other things. So I'm sorry to digress, but all I want to insert is root cause. Why are we even talking here? Why are ranchers, why are citizens who are paying insurances that are higher than 3 years ago in a weathered area? And I'm not going to say that whole country, Texas has more natural disasters than the other state. We're bigger. That's one reason, but it's a weather place. And California refused to ever acknowledge that. I have friends who died in the Paradise fires. That's why I'm here, actually. That's why I very intentionally moved here 4 or 5 years ago, from what my dad taught me to look for and ask questions about. So here's my observation. We don't need to even be talking about this. We just need to say no. We need to use the data that you have, the cities that you've always heard of, the state that California is in, that wasn't that way when I graduated from high school. Those kind of things because of bad management and attracting and trying to please the wrong parties. Texan is about Texans. And then the only other part I have about this is that the foreign ownership of these best facilities, and a lot of them, like someone mentioned, where theirs are selling the land off, or they're owning the land and leasing it. And when one of your early meetings, or one of the first commission boards that you had, we have to insure our property in Texas. If you're not the property owner, you're not liable and you don't have the insurance costs. So I would just go back to the very basics. Why do we even have to entertain having these types of facilities here when we are as you actually told us, sir, we are a very energy rich state. We don't need them. The military doesn't need them. They have the things in place that here said. The technical areas don't need them. I also lived near San Jose for a time. We all were self-sustaining, and I worked in healthcare. I was always in the hospital. I was under the hospital operation to move protected. So those things are not being factored in or just being glanced over. They shouldn't be. That should be where the peering should go. That should be where the investigation goes. Why are we even having this talk?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to conclude the public comments and discussion. And I'll just wrap this section up by, we have to comply with the law. And right now, the way the law is written, it favors best developers. And so one of the most important things to do is to lobby your state representatives. And I mean, all of them, not just, Wes is on board. He's on our side, but, write your governor, lieutenant governor, write Lee Zeldin at the EPA, write President Trump. If they do away with the subsidies, they do away with wind and solar and BESS. So, it takes a lot of, political activism, if you will, because we can only do so much. I think we are, as a commission, elevating the conversation and drawing attention to it, but we can't do it alone. So you guys need to do your part. Really? Okay. Go ahead. Let me have it. Yep.
We've given you. I think has been dealing with it. It is in the code. It is in the fire code. It is in NFPA 1, 855, and 101. Why are you not listening to what we're telling you? We are saying, and he is telling you, these are not safe based on this criteria. You have the ability to do this. You've had the ability to do this for over a year. And I'm tired of hearing this. There's only so much we can do. Try. Look at the code. Have you studied the code?
Yes.
Then where are the questions? Where are the questions?
Anyway.
I think one of the situations, Esther, until an application comes across our desk,
I understand that.
we can't deny anything that we haven't received yet. So we're prepared. And not just the fire marshal for Kendall County, we've actually hired outside counsel in addition to that. So once, I'm not saying we don't.
Well, no one said we have nothing.
We're probably doing more than about anyone else in Texas right now. Wow.
Okay.
To fund private litigation. Okay? Because we are saying, here's what is happening. And all you all do is sit here and wring your hands. I'm sorry. This doesn't work for us.
I don't think we're sitting back wringing our hands. We're here.
Okay?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm looking at my judge who has heard this for 10 months, if not more. And finally hired Hazard Dynamics in August. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, a few months ago.
I'm gonna put you on the spot again, Judge Jones. You have not made any questions, any comments. You fought us on what we construction. And so I gave you $200,000 in invoices. We having to fight our own commissioners so hard to get you to do something. That's the problem we're having. We're not seeing anything happening. Okay, and I'm gonna ask you, now Friday, Peregrine submitted basically a big FU and said, we got your letter, but we're not giving you anything. Okay, now what are you gonna do? You gave them 3 weeks, and the day of, you got a letter that says, yeah, we got your letter, basically fight me. Okay, now what are you gonna do? You didn't do anything when we gave you the code when they were doing construction. You did nothing. We gave you code, we gave you specifics, and nothing was done. You argued with us that no construction had taken place. What Van Zandt has done is what they told all of you. Their fire marshal, their county attorney, their district attorney, their entire commission, everybody is on the same page. They don't want these. We're not seeing that same cohesion, and you've all seen it on your commission, on voting on things, right? 2 to 3,
3-2. That's what's happening. Okay? There is no cohesion. And we have our volunteer fire departments who are saying, I'm not taking a side. Why? Why are we not taking a side? And I just asked this gentleman up here about the hydrogen fluoride. He didn't have an answer. More equipment. No, you can't have equipment because it doesn't exist. This is what we're talking about. And evacuating people, how are we going to evacuate 600 children out of a school? How are we going to evacuate 1,500 residents out of a neighborhood? We have a choice here. You didn't have a choice on July 4th. People died. We have a choice. And let me tell you, every one of you sitting in here, what Paragon responded to our lawsuit and their motion to dismiss was that there is a remedy. It's called financial. If we kill you, we will pay you. They actually wrote that. Okay, are you hearing me? There's a remedy. It's financial. We kill you, we are going to pay you. That lawsuit was sent to the commissioners. Judge Jones, I've never heard a word out of your mouth about that. That should have been so egregious to everyone, right? How does everybody feel about that? We're upset because we are having to come out of pocket. We are over $100,000 on the Harper litigation right now, and we haven't even gotten to court. $100,000, and now we have a second project. It's two components, 800 acres of solar and another battery facility. The citizens are having to come out of pocket. That's what we're pissed off about, okay?
Okay. So we now have to set our next meeting date. Location. I think it's Kendall County's turn next.
Yes, and I need to pull my phone off of that because it
Okay,
has
all
my
right.
calendar on it. Sorry.
Are we up for a meeting in December? I'll be around.
Most of
And so are you going to meet with our 391?
We met, come here and met.
No, to come answer more questions.
That's, you know. Each individual, the day, nothing.
You will commit to coming back to us in months from now? And you feel that's sufficient for state agency?
So that's. Here today.
And that's good enough for you? Thank you. Thank you all for everything y'all are doing. Greatly appreciate everything y'all are doing, seriously. Because I know even if Commissioner Paces went to PUC and you spoke to them and you had two other ladies that went. So I greatly appreciate what y'all are doing. And I'm sorry that some people don't feel that they should have to stand up and answer for what they're choosing to do.
Yeah.
Thank y'all.
Well, thank you. Goes with the job. Meeting date done. We're done with the public input. I'm sorry. I mean, we've got to move on. Yeah, please. Any dates look okay for next month? Give me an option. Commissioner Holt. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll be here. Commissioner Holt and Commissioner Carpenter, you guys are the toughest schedule wise. So volunteer a date or two.
Fine.
We have court
Day.
On Friday night.
We do the week after that?
Right?
No, that's a Tuesday.
The 9th is a Tuesday.
Oh, sorry.
You're on the wrong.
I was
Yeah.
making sure I wasn't.
It's the 16th, Tuesday.
I'd just say it should be, if we're actually going to be going to the LCRA
Oh,
and
that's true.
ERCOT meetings
Yep.
on the 8th, it should be the next week at the
No,
earliest.
That's fine. I agree.
It looks good. I think that at night, it's maybe a little harder to get people to come because they have to
Do
go
1
back in the
o'clock?
dark. 1 o'clock?
1 o'clock, which day?
16th, December.
That's okay. Does a Friday work better for you, Commissioner Holt? You know, are you available on a Friday at, 1 o'clock?
Yeah, that's,
Christmas party, Kirk.
that doesn't
What?
work well for
Christmas
me.
party, Kirk County.
Oh.
We could
Never
do it
mind.
after that.
Yeah, okay, well, how about the 16th then?
Well, no, we could do it after the Christmas party.
2 o'clock.
Because
Oh,
we're already being.
That's true. That's true. So, yeah, I mean, that party's over with
Fine
by
with me.
1:30, 1.
Yeah.
Anyway,
2
okay,
is
2 o'clock. Okay, 2 o'clock on which day?
19.
19th. Is that all right?
In,
Friday the
Friday?
19th.
In Kendall. Yeah. So,
Generally, Fridays are just not great for me at all, but, I think if we have to, we'll do that.
okay, I mean, I'm flexible, but
Metaphorically.
yeah, not physically, you're right.
Hot yoga.
No, you're
But you're
absolutely right.
you're close to Kendall County when you're,
Yeah.
subbing and, right?
All right. So, are we okay with that?
I got a question real quick. Y'all said that there's a Christmas party on the 19th at
Yeah.
12,
Sure.
and
think
then y'all
so.
would have to get over there by 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's at the Youth Event Center,
That's,
at least it normally is.
yeah.
All right,
We can-
well, then,
Was it gonna be?
the 19th at 2 o'clock in Kendall County.
Nice meeting you, sir.
Yes, sir. And then we'll ask you to host the next one. Well, they're kind of brand new. I mean, I don't care. Jennifer volunteered earlier, so.
Even next time.
Okay, wait a second. Since I
What?
volunteered to have it in Kindle, I would
That's
Okay,
exactly.
then what?
rather have it on Tuesday if it's possible. Is
Well-
Tuesday possible at all that week, the 16th?
Perfect for me.
It's,
Definitely do virtual.
okay.
Well,
How about you? Does that work for you, Judge Jones?
19th?
She wants to go on the 16th, Tuesday.
At 1,
They both work for me.
okay. How about you?
Yeah.
Linda? I'm just gonna tell her.
All right.
All right.
Well, then, let's move, we conclude this meeting because we're kind of
Okay.
already broken up.
Okay, let me turn this off.
What time are we meeting at? 2?
At 1,
At 1 on the 16th of.
at Kittle County Commissioner's Court.
So you're gonna reset the Tuesday?
Tuesday at 1, the 16th. Okay, let me turn this off. Okay.
Okay. We're concluded.